I always knew that there was something on this planet that I was supposed to do, and I thought it was saving the world.
We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today, the Noongar Wadandi Mort. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging.
Scratch the surface and everyone has a story. Welcome, Kaya, to the Wisdom of Women.
Now, today's guest describes herself as your average Aussie mum whose life was changed in an instant.
Julie Kent has been through a lot over the years, but she still manages to call herself blessed.
Yeah, welcome, Julie. You're a tough mum. Mumma Jules, known as.
Yep, Mumma Jules, that's me, yep. To many kids that aren't my own biologically, but yeah, and very proud to wear the moniker.
Oh, beautiful. Good on you. Yeah, you've certainly helped a lot of people along the way. Let's just go back a little bit, though, to the start of sort of the last few years ago when life pretty much turned pear-shaped. Is that the right description?
I wouldn't say that it turned pear-shaped. It was probably fairly distorted by then anyway, but it certainly took something from a very personal level to a very public level, and it was unexpected. I didn't realise that just, I posted something on Facebook and it touched thousands of people all over the world, and and then it snowballed and said my life changed from that moment. It's never been the same, but not bad.
So what happened? What was the trigger here?
Okay, so I have 3 sons. All of them had problems with meth addiction. My youngest one, I was sitting in the car. We were on our way to the courthouse, local Bunbury courthouse, and he'd got himself into some trouble when he was coming down. And I'm sitting in the car and I looked at myself in the rear vision mirror and I didn't recognise the woman there as me, and I'm a happy, loving kind of person, but this woman was distraught and I was having panic attacks, stuff that had never happened to me. And as well as my own children, Mumma Jules, I was watching their friends and other young people in our society succumbing to this thing, and it was almost like an avalanche. It was just going insane. About the same time that we started getting the government and the police were really saying that this is a real problem. And so I posted on Facebook that I look like crap and this is why. And about the fact that my son was a beautiful young man, well liked, and I say half their problem for all my boys was they're quite attractive, charismatic, friendly kind of guys. So making friends, whether they be good or bad, wasn't hard. And I just wanted them to just stop and not do this to their mum.
Yeah.
Don't do this because it's not fair. And that was before I knew anything about what I was dealing with. Okay. So I learned a lot along the way, and that was a very naive, very distraught mum.
Yeah.
And, the next day I walked outside and I didn't realise, I don't know anything about media, I didn't realise that because I'd got contacted by a radio station and I did a little interview on the radio and, only lasted a couple of minutes. Next day, there I am on the front page of our local paper.
Wow.
All my boys' names and everything there.
How did it feel? What's going through your mind?
Devastation. Fear of how they were going to react to that, because they weren't in good places. But then there's that little bit inside of me went, no, bugger you, I need to get this out there. I need to do something about this. All these people, on my phone, it was ridiculous. I was getting 300 messages a day. I was in the London Times.
Wow.
Excuse me, I'll have a drink.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Go ahead. It's really interesting, and I love the way, though, that you just thought, I'm putting it out there. I have to put it out there.
I didn't have an option now. I live in Australia. I've lived there for 20-odd years, and everybody knows me and knows my kids and stuff. So there we were on the front of the paper. And up to that point, I had been, because Australia's quite a small community and all the kids all knew each other, I was already having people coming up to me in the supermarket and going, oh, Julie, I've got a friend whose family's just like yours. Could you talk to her?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, just like mine? You mean beautiful, loving, torn apart, yeah, struggling, yeah, but we're not damaged, that we didn't do anything wrong. My boys made a bad choice.
Yep.
And all these other kids are making bad choices, and I'm not the only mum. I'm just the loud one.
Were you quite blown away by the reaction in the sense of how many other people were going through this?
I knew how bad the problem was, because I was seeing it in my own life. So, that because we had an old place out on the estuary and a big pizza oven. So my place was always the place the kids came. And I'm Mumma Jules for a reason, because I was always that person that they could come to and go, shit, I've just broken mum's door, or I've had a fight with dad or something. And so I knew what was going on in our community. And, meth's fairly obvious.
Yeah.
We've all walked around the supermarket and seen that person or seen them driving, and it was on the news all the time. So I was more blown away by the personal stories that I was getting, and the fact that something, I know Facebook, sometimes I might get 100 likes on something. This was thousands and thousands and private messages and people all over the world. And then I'm like, okay, this is something.
So people are reaching out for help to you because you've put it out there. Because like you said, you're the loudest voice. So they're going, oh, we need help from this loud voice.
Yeah.
Well, we just need someone's telling my story.
Yeah.
And when you read, I mean, I belong to lots of groups online that have for helping people with addiction. And our stories are the same. And there's a big thing in our society where we like to label people. And so we're all enablers. And if I could take one word out of the dictionary, I'd take that word out. That's a really nasty word.
Yeah, okay.
When there were times in that journey, in that early part, where I thought I was going to bury my children. So feeding them, I've got 12 grandchildren, nappies, petrol in their car, phone credit, all of that stuff. Yep. And my loving partner of 23 years and I will never be rich, because it cost us a lot financially and emotionally, but it was worth every cent of it. And it obviously, for whatever reason, something higher said, this loudmouth Aussie mum from Australand has to make a difference. And and it wasn't just me, it was Lena as well.
Yeah. So tell us about this. How did you connect with Lena? And
so she'd started a Facebook page, I think probably only about a week before this happened, called Ice in Bunbury, A Mother's Nightmare. Her son nearly died. And same thing. She, like when you're going through this, you Google.
Yeah.
And you're looking for support. And, of course, rehab's the first thing that comes into mind. Well, I'm happy to quote that for the majority, it doesn't work.
Okay.
So what are my other options? And you have your local GP, but if they're not educated or compassionate and empathetic towards addiction, then you can go to a lot of different places. And a lot of the places too, they're government funded. You might wait months.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, we all know the health system is
Inadequate, yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine, as you say, then for the addiction aspect, you'd be really scrambling to find people.
You are really scrambling, and it is overwhelming, and you're scared, and you're being judged by your peers because everybody knows what's going on in your family. Yeah. And for Lena the same, we both put it out there. So anyway, her and Courtney decided they were going to call a public meeting. So I think there was about 70 or 80 of us all went down to Jetty Barnes near Vatu, and we had a bit of a sausage sizzle and made some platters and stuff. And we had a girl who came down from Karratha who was coming out of addiction, and I dragged my son by his ear and said, you're coming along whether you like it or not, because at this time he was, being home detained.
Okay.
To get well.
Mumma Jules had stepped in.
So we came along, and there was lots of us, and we realised, okay, there's enough of us here to do something. We didn't know what we wanted to do, but we knew we wanted to do something. So we had a meeting about a month later down at Henry's one night, And we just brainstormed. Yep. Like, what is it that you need at that time? You need immediate intervention. You need someone to listen. You need a GP who can get this person in a good place. You need a mental health plan. All of those things. How are we going to do this? And then that's when Lena and I started campaigning.
Yes.
Two women who had absolutely no idea what they were doing. And I mentioned earlier that I met Howard Sattler. So I had messaged him one night and sent him a little blurb about what we were doing. And he was doing very similar to what you girls are doing, except it was just, people with their story. And we went up and we had a chat to him, and he knew people in Parliament. So he got us an invitation to Parliament House and came with us.
Wow.
And we sat down with the Minister for Health at the time and told him kind of what we were about, that we wanted some sort of service that was supporting families and friends, not the addicts as such, because that's their journey, but to have somewhere for people to go when this was happening to them. And, and so Doors Wide Open was born from that.
Fantastic service. How did it go once you opened the doors of Doors Wide Open? What happened?
Look, it was absolutely amazing. We were lucky enough that we were in the middle of election. And so
fantastic,
Lena and I...
Yeah. Don't you love that? That's always helpful. When
Well,
the
it was
pollies are
it was really funny because we suddenly started getting... We were in every paper and they were donating money to us, and we got invited to all of their... when they do their blurb before elections.
Yeah.
And stuff. And because it was in the news, we actually were told that you girls are going to be what chooses Liberal or Labor in our community. Don got in, a very staunch supporter of ours.
Big impact.
It was a huge impact, but the impact on that's when the water testing and stuff was all going on.
Yep.
And the woman that sadly got killed out on the road to Bustleton.
Yes.
All of that was all the same time.
Yeah.
So it was in everybody's minds. We were on the news all of the time. And, and so Mark McGowan came down. We made him a pizza. we had a little centre in Forest Ave. We got the rent really cheap. And because I'm Mumma Jules, I went out to the community and said, we need help.
Yeah.
So we had so much support of local electricians and trailer hire, and I managed to get us a car through Lotteries West.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic. Yes.
All of that
I have
stuff.
seen your little car, or I had seen
Had
your
seen
little
it.
car.
It's still there. It's still there.
It's interesting hearing you talk about the support, in particular, the government support and funding, because that can make or break a scenario, and sometimes it can be a little politicised, donations and funding and support. How have you found that?
Look, I'll take money from anybody, Shauna.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Grassroots especially, there's lots of them. This was a powerful thing. The timing was everything.
Yeah.
In any other time, we would probably not have made it as far as we did with any other people. Although the service still exists, it doesn't exist in the same space that we originally started it for, but it was the government and the community. Like, we could not have done this without Bunbury. This is an awesome place, and people do care.
Yes.
And we're all basically just trying to get by, and Bunbury already struggles enough. Having the worst meth problem in Australia didn't do us any favours.
No,
of course
it's not a good crown to be carrying, is it?
No, and it wasn't, and I'm not, it wasn't something that the powers that be in Bunbury wanted made obvious. And Lena and I did that. We made it really obvious there was a problem and that we were going to talk about this.
That's interesting. Did you get some pushback?
Yeah.
Did anyone turn around and say to you, you just need to calm down a bit?
Yeah.
Ladies, why don't you settle down?
Yeah, we kept getting told all the time, you need to do some self-care.
Oh, my
And
God.
it's like, no, we don't. We need to ride this while we can. And we were told that it didn't portray sexy Bunbury.
Oh, please.
No way, someone said that.
Yes,
I didn't know there was a sexy Bunbury. And who wants a sexy Bunbury, let's be
Yeah.
honest.
No
we just
one.
want Bunbury.
That's
Yeah.
gone. Yeah.
My
Yes.
God.
Yeah, and that was really, really, and nobody wants it in their backyard, and that's always been the case, and that's
that
not
always
just,
will be.
and that's not just around addiction, and that's, but what we did was get rid of a little bit of the stigma about it. We made it, we were normal, just normal mums, nice ladies that you'd go and have a couple with your girlfriend with, whose lives were changed by something they had no control over. And that brings it back to a really personal level. And they're the people we wanted to help.
Yes.
I've sat in emergency with someone in psychosis. I've sat with someone when she just found out that her daughter had passed away.
Oh.
I sat with families whose child had suicided. Now, you don't get any more personal than that. And if out of all of this, that's all I ever take away from it, what a privilege.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So what kind of service did you want to offer, and is that what you were able to offer?
We were, absolutely it did. So my role at Doors Wide Open was I ran cooking classes, art classes. I did community service. So getting the car that we got, the funding around that was the fact that I took people who were in recovery and we did yard cleanups and help people move. And I took them out. I'm a great cook. And so we were doing the Catholic Women's Australian Christmas party.
Oh, fantastic.
And I'd take all these guys in with me and we'd cook and we'd serve it and they'd clean up the yards. They get so much from that. That it was so powerful in giving them some self-worth. And we included the whole families in that. Doors Wide Open, a chook pen and a veggie garden and a playroom, and it was a home. It wasn't a service.
And no one needed a referral from a doctor or how did it work? You could literally just turn up,
Yeah.
knock on the door and say, hey, I need some help.
For
or
the
we need help.
first 2 years, Lena and I were 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We were
That's
available
intense.
to people. And then that changed a little bit, and like I said before, we didn't know what we were doing. So we went and got ourselves some qualifications. We both got community service diplomas and all of those things so that we were putting some knowledge behind our lived experience.
Yeah.
And, we had circles where we would sit with, especially families and friends. That's really, really powerful to sit with a group of people who've been through similar experiences. But, lots of times we had sewing. One of the girls had a sewing machine. So they'd all sit and people in recovery with their mum or dad and son coming out to do a community service project, rebuilding those connections with community and family. And that's so powerful.
So that's the success to recovery, do you think, is making sure that it's not just the individual, it's all that support services, the family, friends, building, as you say, that connection again?
The first thing that you do is build the resilience in that family unit, whatever that looks like, whoever that person's family might be, because families are all different.
Yeah.
So it's normally a loved one or someone that will come first and say, I've got this child, I want to help them. And lots of times it is telling them, okay, yes, that's what you want. Until they want it, that's not going to happen. But how can we help you? How can we support you? Can we get you some counselling? Do you need to be on some sort of medication to cope through this? Do you have a good doctor? And where are the children in this? And that's the most important thing of the whole lot. Where are the kids in this? Let's build as much safety around this family as we can. And then when this person over here, because they will come one day or one night, for me, one of them was 4:00 in the morning. I can't do this anymore. I need out. So this family now has a little plan, somewhere to start.
Yeah.
And it's a long road, and that person is going to have to do it 90% on their own. But when they're ready, they need that loving place to be, that unconditional love for this to work.
Right.
And it might take a few times. So your resilience is going to be tested over here. So
Okay.
that's what needs to be done. And then, yes, as they get better, and it's a long, for that first 12 months, they're probably not much good to anybody. And a lot of people go, oh, well, they need to be working, or, they should be, why are they sleeping all the time, and all of those things. It's not a quick fix.
Right.
It's not a quick fix. So let's take baby steps. But people come, when they're in that, and for me too, in that desperation, you just want somebody to give you something.
Yeah.
And my job at Doors Wide Open a lot of time was to make 1,000 useless phone calls. But that person sitting there in desperation could see that somebody cared. And somebody was going to, and lots of times it was people would come, and on top of their addiction problem, they had no food. They had no sanitary products.
Wow.
We supplied that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Which was, put on a new set of clothes, new pair of kicks, food in your belly. You might feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
You might have a little bit of something to give.
The basics, isn't it? The absolute basics.
Yeah, dignity. We all deserve that.
How does it sit with you that you guys were working together and pulling on the services, services and help from a lot of people, and yet clearly this is a huge community issue? I mean, authorities, support services, proper, I'm not saying proper, but, local government, like where were they in all this? Did at some point you turn around and go, come on, step in?
The day that we first went up to Parliament House and the minister Googled grants for us. And then at that time, there'd just been 18 rehab beds released in WA. And we said, where are the beds? And she said, I don't know. And she turned around to her PC. Oh, where are they? And that realisation that, we thought you go to Parliament House, they give you some money, you go do your good deed, and that's what it is. There's none of that. We were very, very lucky. There was a wonderful man in Bunbury who came on board as our advisor, who worked for free for us. And eventually, when we got a bit of funding, he got a little bit of money to put our proposals together and all of those things. But a lot of it, like the Lottery West application, that was me on a computer. No idea what I'm doing. So that illusion that someone can come along and fix this, they can't. Unfortunately, the bit I still can't get my head around is why it costs $1 million to write a paper or a proposal about something.
Yes. Yeah.
And why can't that money be fed to we've got 1 million different organisations all doing great work, all on a shoestring budget, and people burn out really quick in this because you're fighting every day. Yeah. And it was, it did come down to, my budget for a week for cooking class was $20.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Oh, my God. Come on.
But then we would get on our Facebook and we'd go, we need stuff. And Nana would come in with a box of groceries.
Yeah.
And, and it really was. But no, there needs to be a lot more collaboration between, not the services because they're doing a great job, between the people who control the money.
So the middle management.
Yeah. Let's get real about this. How much money have we really got and where do we really need to spend it?
And because the fact of the matter is, addiction costs the community enormously. Like we don't really realise, Joey, how deep it all goes.
Yeah. And people have that concept that it's not me, it's not my problem, but then the house gets broken into and their excess on their insurance goes up, or their car gets stolen, or a window gets broken, or they're the same people who are complaining that we're spending so much on people who are unemployed and all of those things, and that all comes out of our money, the taxes we pay.
Yep.
So it does affect you. So you may not know anybody in addiction, but it's affecting your life. And as the human beings on this planet, we have an obligation to work together to protect and look after the ones that are vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
And Julie, you've spoken about childhood trauma. and your lived experience. Can you talk a bit about this and how that impacts?
Okay, I always say I'm going to write a book one day, and it's going to be a bestseller. And my life, I mean, I was born in 1963, so very Aussie family of that time that appeared to be very normal, but the undercurrent of that was very different. There was child sex abuse, there was infidelity, there was domestic violence, there was all those things. So I was already, when I became a mother, already had my own trauma. And then because of that, my kids, although my two youngest ones I've been with my partner now for 23 years and he's a wonderful man, but they saw some stuff. They dealt with some stuff that wasn't good. And I have to, and it really hurts to admit that I probably played a part in their childhood trauma and therefore their addiction. Wow. So for me, that became really important that I was the place that stopped. So I've been lucky enough that through Doors Wide Open, I was able to do 13 programs in the Bunbury Regional Prison. And I would say 85 to 90% of the young men that I met in there had significant childhood trauma. We did a restorative justice program, so I went in as a mum of addicts and told my story to them. And time after time after time, I would hear these boys coming to me and going, my mum must have felt like that. And I can honestly say there were a few, there are some bad people in jail, so, they're not all angels, but a large percentage of them I really liked. They were really nice guys, but they had this stuff that was never dealt with. And children, we have this thing, kids are resilient. No, they're not. They're not resilient. They're little, tiny people. And I know how frightening my experience wasn't as an adult with addicts. I can't imagine what it would be like for those little people. And they're living this every day. And these are the same kids that are going to school the next day and they're hungry and they're tired and they're dirty and they can't concentrate and then they're labelled.
Yeah, right.
And then they got lost in the system and then there's your next generation of addicts.
Yeah, the intergenerational trauma continues.
And it's a job of everyone in society. They're not someone else's kids. They're our kids. They're our next generation. We're all on the same planet together.
Yep.
And we need to stop that. And sometimes, I did a lot of work with grandparents who are older, perhaps not wanting to buy into this again. And my story was always the same, so get that kid out of there. And we had to do that for one of our own. We had shared care of a granddaughter for 3.5 years. Had we not, her parents would never have got well. What a success story that is.
Yeah, okay. And nice to hear. It is a success story.
All for all of my children.
Yeah.
It's a success story.
Yeah, okay. Wow.
And I'm a nan of 12. So this is really personal. And I can see the difference already in them. Because
in the grandchildren.
Yeah, because we've been able to put that safety net around them and nurture them and care for them. And it was really hard. It's really hard to tell a child who is also a parent that you can't take your kid to Macca's. You can't go down to the park. That's hard. That was really tough for me. But it gave them time to get well and it protected these little ones. And they're going to be okay. And that's huge. And we can all do our part in that. We can all stop closing our eyes and saying it's someone else's problem.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who's an addict, but you like say now, and like we always say, scratch the surface because you just don't know. It's everywhere. But it's right behind us. It can be anybody from any walk of life. You don't have to be someone struggling. You can be very successful and fall into addiction or have a child fall into addiction at any age.
Absolutely. And I met so many of those people, so many people that would walk in and I'd go, wow, you?
Yeah, okay.
No idea.
Wow.
No idea. And and said we all have a vision of what we think someone in addiction looks like, and it's nothing like that.
No.
But I just think that if, as a society, we open our eyes a little bit, and it can be something as simple as you're dropping your kids at school and there's that other kid, the kid that you see in the class that just not quite right, and maybe it's just taking 5 minutes. Can you buy them something to eat at the canteen? Can you read them a story? Can you include them? Just so that they know that there's good people out there, and they're far more likely to reach out if they know that there's safe people.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. What's some other advice that you would be looking to pass on as well?
Okay, so when I always say my thing is protect the child, and like we've just talked about, that means protecting children. There's also really important that we protect the inner child, our own inner child. And I think it's something, especially for women, that we're not encouraged to do. And I did a lot of counselling and received a lot of counselling over the years. And I can remember a wonderful counsellor that I had said to me one day, the reason that you've survived is because you've tapped into your inner child. And I'm the most childish woman that you will ever meet.
Fantastic.
I have the most beautiful Beanie Boo collection.
Oh, I love this.
I spend my days, I make stuff. I make witches' bells. I make wands out of gemstones. I go out into the bush and I get wood and encrust them into wands. I've got a beautiful little altar and singing bowls.
Oh, I love
Cool.
it. Because you never know, though, when you need a magic wand. They do come in handy.
Yeah.
I love it.
They do come in handy. And even with my own grandchildren, I've got two, I call them my dirt girls because they're the real nature lovers. Oh. And we do the bushwalk to school. And I get so much pleasure. And I play a lot. I make stuff, I sew, I sing. I've got 200 indoor plants because I work in a nursery. And I just think that for other women, and it's really hard often, money can be a real constraint for women.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody has a good income. And I was thinking about it the other day and I'm like, I wish I'd known as a young, I was a single mum with 4 kids at one point, broke. I wish I'd thought to go and buy a punnet of seedlings from Bunnings for $2.99 and plant them and watch them grow. Yeah. And there's that playing and just allowing ourselves to find joy in stuff that doesn't cost.
Yeah, okay. That's a bit of a lost art, isn't it, I think?
I think it's coming back. I feel the groundswell.
Great.
I do. I feel, and even something as simple as this, of those of us that have been there are starting to share what we know. And there's great value in that.
There's incredible value in sitting down, having a conversation, and not one that has to be over because I've got appointments to go to or I need to do this. It's sitting down and just absorbing all that incredible wealth of knowledge.
And learning to listen. And I really struggle with this one. I'm a talker. So
no, really?
Yeah. So something that Dawes taught, and Lena used to have a sign. She would tap me on my shoulder, and that meant, Julie, you've said enough.
Oh, I love that.
Because sometimes, I could get a bit carried away. But learning to listen.
And going back to Doors Wide Open, are you still helping there? Like what's happening? What happened with that journey, if you don't mind explaining?
Okay, so couple of years in, things changed a little bit from the 2 mums that started it. And I don't want to go into anything personal, but there was a board, there was some political stuff, and I was in the middle of doing my diploma of counselling. And so I was starting to question how things were being run. And made a huge mistake in asking for a meeting to discuss my concerns and was asked for my resignation.
Wow.
So within 5 minutes, my whole life changed. And
that really makes me cross because you're just asking for something, a little bit of pushback, and then you're out.
Yeah, and there were, the thing, and I talked to a lot of other non-for-profit groups and root organisations and say to them all the time, one of the most important things that you work out at the beginning is what everyone's agenda is.
Yeah.
And a lot of that came from the growth.
Yeah.
So, and personalities and stuff. And it was, at the time, totally devastating. I just my mental health just absolutely fell to pieces. But I have to say now, it was the best experience in my life because from that came incredible healing.
Great.
Okay.
So I was really broken, I had no idea what I was going to do and thought that I still had to save the world. And about the same time COVID happened. And so everyone suddenly, the world wasn't existing so much outside. And that's when, and I identify myself as a crone. That's the woman I am.
Crone.
And so I started channeling my inner crone and I played and I healed.
Great.
And now I have a beautiful job where I play with plants. I still admire what's going on. And I always knew that there was something on this planet that I was supposed to do. And I thought it was saving the world. And then I realised that what it is just sharing what I know and spreading that wherever it's meant to be.
So you created something very special and something that was very much needed, but then it was time in a way to let that baby go
well,
off.
it took a lot, and I said there was a lot of hurt, and the thing that came out of it, I'm not an angry person. I'm not angry about anything that happened. I'm able to look at all of it now, right back to the stuff early in my life, and go, it was a set of circumstances. We did something amazing. It had value. It's still got value. It's morphing as stuff does. You know, nothing ever stays the same. And for me, I can go to bed every night and I wake up and I love Julie. She's a really cool chick.
Yeah. It's funny you talk about the counselling, and a counsellor said to me not too long ago that you have to look after that little girl, that little 8-year-old girl. Like when your trauma starts to hit you 6 or 7 or 8 or however, you got to look after that little girl in there because she's still in there and you've got to be looking after her.
Oh, and it's so lovely when you tap into it, and that's why I surround myself with young people. You know, I know lots of old people, and there's nothing about getting old that I'm really looking forward to doing that. So I like to hang around, and not in the, you know, I don't go out to concerts and stuff with them.
Yeah.
But they call into the house, and I'll get a message, Mum, got any food?
Oh.
Nice.
And I take so much, you know, it's like you can zap a little bit of that youth back. And, and, you know, I just recently went to my brother's wedding, and we're a huge family. There's 9 of us, and we danced the night away, and it was like we were all kids again.
Oh, that's
and,
nice.
you know, there's no limit on fun, and there's no age limit.
No.
So, yeah, you need to look after her. And women, you know, we're the fixer-uppers of the world, and that's a huge burden.
Yeah.
And it's okay occasionally to step aside and go, I'm going to go make mud pies.
Yeah.
The world can just look after itself for 5
absolutely.
I love
minutes.
the way you say that. Yeah. I'm just stepping away for a moment.
Yeah, I'm going to go and play in my blanket fort, or, you know, eat chips and watch a cool movie or something. And, yeah.
It's really whatever floats your boat, isn't it? We've all got different things that we need that hit the inner soul.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
help us to revive.
And we're expected to be busy and productive all the time, and it's okay not to, because at the end of the day, we're all going to be dead.
I find that really interesting as well, because I often I will talk to girlfriends or whatever, and it'll be like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Oh, let me check the diary. I'm flat out. I'm really busy. And since my circumstances with work have changed a little bit, I turn around and think, why is it that I'm feeling guilty if I turn around and say, well, actually, no, I haven't got really anything on, but I'm enjoying that.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have to be
You
busy?
shouldn't feel guilty. Yeah,
Why do we
exactly.
have to be busy all the time?
We don't
I
have
read
to.
something that said something that laziness is, particularly to women, is something new, and it was kind of to control the lower classes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not doing something for your masters or your higher ups, you are lazy. But it's not.
Yeah, okay.
It's not human. It's not our thing that's innate to us. It's kind of, we're conditioned that way.
I've got a fridge magnet that says boring women keep immaculate houses. And I'm not a boring woman, but I have a really nice home and I like to keep it clean. But I also like to, I like to cook up a storm and rock out to some cool music and that sort of stuff. And it's okay to switch all that off. And I know you come from a media background. I don't watch the news. Yeah. I don't watch TV. I don't want to know.
Must admit, I don't watch a lot of it either.
I'm the one keeping the news source going, I think, at the moment.
Cool.
Just every now and then what's happening.
Yeah, no, and I'm just like, no, it's nice where I play.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, I love it, Julie. Absolutely beautiful. Good on you.
Thank you, Julie.
No,
It's
you're
been,
very
it's
welcome.
been, there's just so much more that I would like to just keep scratching.
That's right. When I write the book.
Yes, okay, we'll come back for a
Yeah.
really in-depth
Yeah,
three-parter.
absolutely. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Oh, my Lord.
Now, if you've been affected by any of the topics discussed, please visit the support links, and we have links for more show information and to subscribe.
Yeah, now before we go, Julie, we love a good quote here, the wisdom of women. What's something that you love? What's something that you think a woman should hear at least once in their life, or, some words?
Okay, so I had a thought about this on the way, and it's something I tell all the women that I know. You will never be as young and beautiful as you are right now ever again in your life, so celebrate everything about that. Stop looking in the mirror and going, I don't like that. Love yourself, because this moment right here is the only one we're guaranteed.
Oh, wow, Julie, thank you so much for that. That's amazing. And always remember,
Every day,
you are remarkable.